I wasn't sure what I wanted to make a video about today, but I wanted to kind of continue on with the reason that I'm making the videos and why I've been working on this brand. So in 2016, so in 2016, I was arrested for having 14 grams of some dope in my car. And I served 3 years for that charge. And my entire prison bit, I did by myself. Pretty much. The majority of it. Towards the end, I kind of reached out a little bit to my family, and my dad was able to help me through the last part of my bit, but I also worked in the kitchen on Dietary 3. So I worked like overnight. And I did my entire prison bit in the max facility and did pretty much the majority of my time because my son's father had an OP on me. So that kept me in the max. I wasn't eligible for a lot of things. Not blaming him, but it sucked. I don't know how to put my story like together. Where am I supposed to start at? What part am I supposed to tell? So that's when I decided just to start documenting everything as much as I could, so that I could kind of show my journey and the things that I'm dealing with or have dealt with. My biggest priority right now is my sobriety. And that's something I've struggled with after I was introduced to heroin. I was 17 and I had met my son's father. Him and I were together for 10 years. And I wasn't aware of all of the things that came along with a heroin addict. And my son's father was the epitome of that. A lot of the times that I think that he doesn't understand the damage that he caused in my life and is still causing. And while I want nothing more than to be able to just have a civilized relationship with this man, he makes that nearly impossible. And I'm clueless as to what exactly it is. Because you weren't worried about their safety when you were overdosing almost every single day. Where I was alone with you in that room to try to keep you from letting anybody know that you were using. Because I knew that we would lose our place. I knew that your grandma would not allow that. And she would make us leave. And I didn't want us all to get separated. There was a stability even in the chaos, because I had a routine every morning to get up with my kids. I got them ready for school. I walked them to the bus stop. And I either went to work or I did housework until they got home. Then we did homework, dinner time, snack time, bath time, bedtime. And that was the routine. Except in the middle of that routine, there was also me chasing my baby daddy around to make sure that, one, he's still breathing, and two, that he doesn't come out slurring and nodding and trying to talk to his grandma or in front of his grandma. I lied for him a lot. And I hit my addiction. I was never able to be the type of heroin addict that nodded out at all ever, because my baby daddy was so extreme within his addiction that he pretty much fell out almost every time. I'd say a good 85% of the time he would fall to the floor, and I would end up giving him CPR or calling an ambulance. But calling an ambulance meant that everybody was going to know. And as soon as it was known that there was an issue going on with the heroin abuse, it was like everybody, the entire family gathered together and just would give an ultimatum. And you know that a lot of that weight usually fell on my shoulders. I would have to pull myself out of my heroin addiction and get sober so that I could save his life. Every time. And I don't know, I guess I don't think the only people that can relate to how hard that is people that have experienced a heroin addiction or families that have been affected by this, because it was hard. But I always did it cold turkey that day, every time. And then sometimes the longest was a few years, but either years, months, or weeks would go by, and then I would start to notice that he was relapsing, because he would have a Vicodin here mixed with the Xanax here, and then that would just start escalating from there. And I'd start to notice his temper would change. He'd get super irritated, scream, yell. He'd start stealing money, lying. And then it always ended up back to the heroin. And somehow, in my head, it was like, oh, we've been doing good, we could just do it one more time. That's always how he convinced me. It was just that one time. But it never was. It'd be that one time, and then 2 weeks later, another time. And then it would get shorter and shorter until it would be every single day. And it always ended up in IV drug use. And heroin is so unpredictable, because the potency is never known 100%. You never know 100% the potency of what you're getting. And you don't, whether it's laced with this or that makes a big difference. And I don't know why, but a lot of heroin addicts mix heroin with benzos, like Klonopin or Xanax, which that never made sense to me, because it's a cocktail for death. That's an instant overdose. But I guess I never could get that high, because I had a responsibility to make sure that he stayed alive and that I was able to be coherent enough to keep him alive. Not only that, but I was raising my kids. And I know there's a lot of people will say there's no type of functioning addict, but if I could have ever been any type of functioning addict, I was one, because I hid my addiction so well. But I had to, so that I could take care of his addiction. there were so many times that he overdosed that people don't even know about, because I was there to make sure he was okay. Like, I literally had to micromanage every aspect of his movements, because if I wasn't looking over his shoulder when he opened up the bag and made out the doses, then he would put way too much in his, just straight fall out. And I can never understand, why would you put that responsibility on me? Because you know what's going to happen. So it's like, he loved walking that edge of that death line, like coming back from it or something. I never understood it, because that was so traumatic for me. It was traumatic for my kids, because they would see that. They saw that. And the one and only time that they saw it from me was the time, apparently, that he needed to get sober to this day. And, you know, I'm really proud of him for doing that. Because I never thought he would. And I don't think anybody else ever thought he would. Because that was his life for so long, and it just never lasted. And I'm hoping and praying that it does, especially for the sake of my children. Because no matter what my kids' fathers have put me through, I have never tried to close off their relationship with their children. And, you know, I blame them a lot, because right now, I'm not even allowed to see them. My daughter's birthday is coming up. She's about to be 15. And I haven't heard her voice in almost 5 years. There's 3 of them I spent in prison. And then it's been 2 years since I've been out. My youngest daughter, Kaylee, just turned 12 last month. I am fortunate enough that I video chat with my sons, but that's as far as I'm allowed to go. And deep down, you know, I understand why, but I also don't. Because during their times where they were at their lowest, or going through something like an addiction, or not having places to go, or not having the money for this or that, I always made sure to leave the door open for them to be in their kids' life, no matter what, unless they were going to be an absolute danger to them. I always made that choice for my kids, because I felt like that was the most important thing. You know, I made a lot of mistakes, but nobody taught me how to be a mom. I was 4 years old when my dad got us. And I don't know if it was from whatever happened in my past that made me into this like stubborn child that I felt like my stepmom and my stepsister made it a point to divide me from my dad. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that I constantly asked about my mom. I always wanted to know. And I remember them telling me, well, I don't understand why you can't just let it go. These are all these horrible, awful things that your mom did to you guys. She abandoned you. Why would you want to? And I didn't know. I was a 4-year-old little girl. I don't know how anybody could expect me to understand what was going on. And nobody wanted to talk about it. Nobody wanted to talk. They just wanted to give me all the reasons why this, and this, but that was never good enough. And it was like, because of that, it just caused this irritation towards me, where I was just like this problem child, and I just couldn't let it go. And you know, DJ was a baby. He didn't even find out until he was 10 years old that he even had a different mom, because we weren't supposed to say anything. But how do you expect a child to let that go? I don't know why it was different for my brothers than it was for me, because they want nothing to do with her. I mean, at this point, I want nothing to do with her either. But it took me this long, till this year, to figure that out. But because of that, and because of whatever trauma I suffered, I couldn't let that go. And it caused this division between me and my entire family. So I feel like I got cheated out of that. And I don't even know who to blame for it. So maybe there's nobody to blame, because how do you even know how to handle something like that? You don't know the effects that it's gonna have. We also know maybe you don't know the effects it would have if you had done the opposite. Maybe that would have been worse, and who knows what would have happened. But I was so persistent. I was swimming at my friend's house. I was 11 or 12. I was in Macomb. And a woman approached me and introduced herself to me as my aunt. And she said that my mom lived just a couple blocks away, and she wanted to know if I wanted to meet her. She would go call her right now. And of course, I wanted to meet her. I was swimming, so I was completely wet when she walked up on the sidewalk with her husband at the time. And she started crying, and she said she couldn't believe how big I was. So it made me feel like maybe she had been looking for me that whole time, because she was so excited to see me. And I told her I wanted to come and live with her, and she said I could, as long as it was okay with my dad. So I begged my dad all summer, and he said no, all summer, until finally I think both him and my stepmom Joy decided that they have to let me go see for myself. And I remember Joy was upstairs crying because I was leaving. And I couldn't, that to me, I was so surprised. I was like, this has got to be fake. She can't care that much that I'm leaving. But I think I made it difficult for her to be my mom. I don't think I really let her. And so maybe at that moment she felt like she failed. And for the longest time I used to think, ah, karma. But I don't feel that way anymore. And I really wish I had given her a chance. Because she was right about my mom. And this woman, the first night that I stayed at my mom's house, I woke up and she was on top of me, passed out, drunk. And I wanted to call home and talk to my dad and everybody. Because I wondered if maybe they missed me. So I called home. And I remember my stepmom Joy got on the phone and was like, hey, Mom. She's like, oh, you're still calling me that? I was like, well, yeah. My mom. I wasn't even calling Melody Mom. Like, it was really strange. I didn't know if I was supposed to call her Mom. Like, I felt really weird about it, so I'd always say, hey. Because it just didn't feel right calling her Mom. You know, I didn't know her. And I remember my mom went out a lot. And she drank a lot. And there was like no... Like, I was still a kid. And a lot of times she would cry. And she would say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I abandoned you. I abandoned you guys. I abandoned you guys for drugs. And I don't think I remember, like, I remember, I didn't even feel anything. I thought hearing that I would feel like some type of, like, acceptance of it, but it was like, how do you accept that? And I could tell that she didn't know how to be a mom because she didn't really care about my well-being. She kind of just, she'd get drunk and she'd just forget that I was even there. So I would just leave. And I'd go hang out and smoke pot in the housing projects in Macomb. They called me Shorty. So I was just drinking and on the weekends and skipping school and just being reckless, being a teenager. And half the time, like, I would come in at like 5 o'clock in the morning and she wouldn't even know that I was gone because she had been drinking. And I could always time it perfectly. She was going to be, I mean, she drank a lot. And somehow she still worked a job as an RN and became like a director of nursing through all this thing. People will surprise you. She pretty much had me convinced that all these memories that I was having about these men that had touched me, that it was my dad. And she was like, I knew it. We're gonna report this. We'll see how he likes this. Like, it was all this revenge plot to cause this like turmoil in his life and like make herself look like this like better person, because I had all these like memories and images in my head that I just couldn't explain and couldn't put a face to, because I obviously wasn't I wasn't trying to. Like, it's something I put in the back of my head. And it's like, she replaced these memories with lies. And I was so embarrassed because she reported this. They investigated my entire family, like asked them all these questions, caused all this chaos. And the whole entire time I'm thinking, well, if I ever thought that I was ever gonna get them to love me, it's gone now. Like, because I was so torn. Like, she would like talk about how they never loved me because I was her daughter, because I look like her, and that's why Joy hated me, and that's why Nicole hated me, and how my dad was just so still in love with her still, and can't let that be known. Like, she's filled my head with so much hatred, just so selfish. And she ruined my relationship with my dad and every single one of my siblings, my stepmom. And you know, every single time that I would reach out because I wanted to come home, because she started kicking me out, like 12 years old. And you know, by this point, I'm so angry that I can't really be around my dad, and I can't be around my mom, and so I was just running around. The whole time I was just wishing that I could take it back. That I wish I wouldn't have been so weak and let her fill my head with all these things about why I was such an unloved child. Because from the day that I told her that after my dad got us and the next morning, I kept asking if my mom was coming. And I kept asking. So she used my love for her as a pawn. And I kept begging for her to be there because she just ruined everything. Any chance that I would have had to have a connection with my dad or my stepmom. Even my siblings, she just ruined any chance of that ever again, so now she's all I have. And then I got pregnant at 15. And I was just staying at friends' houses, wherever I could stay. My girl's father the day I told him I was pregnant, and he told me he thought that we should break up. Even though he was asking me to come to his house any chance that I could get so he could sleep with me. He would send me on my way. I always had to be gone before 4 so that his girlfriend wouldn't find out. I remember it was just really cold one night. So I layered up in as much clothes as I could find. And I just started walking, and there was snow and ice on the ground. Like, it was like covered. Like, it was snow, and then like it had got wet and frozen. It was so slick. And it was so cold. And I just decided I was gonna go to the hospital. I didn't know what was gonna happen. I didn't know what they could do, but I thought maybe, you know, I'm pregnant. So they gotta help me somehow. I think I was like 8 months along. You know, I was almost due, like 7, 8. And a social worker came in, and I kind of told her like what was going on, and she said she tried to call my mom, and she answered. There was a bunch of music. She thought she was drunk, and then they just hung up. Surprising. And my dad came in, and I just remember the lady asked her like why I couldn't come home with them. And my dad said we just butt heads, which we did. Because I could not give up on the love that I had for my mom. They ended up putting me in a shelter called the Samaritan Well in Macomb. And the director, her name was Joanne. She stayed with me the majority of the time. Right up almost until I had her. But then I was in so much pain, and you know, I'm scared. I'm a teenager, I'm by myself. And she could tell like I was uncomfortable, but that I was scared. So it's like, but I was so grateful for her because she didn't have to be there. But she saw that I needed it. And I had my daughter Caitlin on April 17th. She'll be 15 this year. And I just remember when they put her in my arms, this overwhelming feeling of love and happiness that I've only ever experienced each time I've held my babies. I took her everywhere. I took her to the grocery store. I took her to my GED classes. I took her to my GED test. I had her strapped onto me when I was waitressing. I took her everywhere.